What's good, everyone? My name is Jacob Moses, host of the Not Boring Tech Writer, and welcome to the first episode of the podcast since December 2016, which is crazy. After leaving the technical writing world in spring 2016 to open up a beautiful little corner store in my neighborhood of downtown Denton, I'm back, bringing the podcast back, and so excited to be chatting with technical writers, wonderful, smart folk who want to share the skill that they believe you need to break the stereotype that technical writing is a boring career. This episode's skill? Surviving in the dev world. We all know that successful technical writers are more than just writers. They're designers, they're knowledge managers, they're support. However, for technical writers in the dev world, they're expected to gain new skills, particularly understanding and writing programming languages. That's a challenging next step for technical writers, and understandably so. We can create docs, but introducing programming languages can make technical writers wonder what it really takes to survive in the dev world. In this episode, I chat with Michal and Pawel, technical writers at Guidewire Software in Kraków, Poland, about how you can survive in the dev world, including the technical writer's role in a development company, how technical writers can gain trust and respect from developers, and how technical writers can start learning program languages today. And before we get started, I'd love to give a shout out to Mary Beth and the team at Knowledge Owl, which is a wonderful knowledge-based software. Without her encouragement and support, we would have never brought this podcast back. So big shout out to them. They're going to be a partner with us throughout the podcast. And thank you all so much for listening, and enjoy the podcast. Michal and Pawel, how are y'all doing today?
Good. Thanks for having us.
Good, thanks.
Awesome. Life's good?
Yeah, everything is going pretty well. Work-wise, family-wise. I can't complain.
Good.
We had a beautiful summer. Yeah, we had a beautiful summer in Poland, and we're moving into a beautiful fall.
We're not really typical Polish people here because we should complain about something, but I don't really have anything specific to complain about.
Good.
So I would say we're pretty original for Polish people.
Well, so I guess the subject of the podcast is formulated kind of as a complaint. Surviving in the dev world means like it's hard to survive. I mean, it sounds like we're...
We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad for the time being there's no complaints. Things are good here in Denton, Texas. It's a rainy Saturday morning, so it's a good day for me to stay inside, drink coffee, and knock out a podcast with y'all. And it's a really exciting episode as well because, as you guys know, this is the first episode since December 2016. So I'm overjoyed to have y'all here and have y'all participate in the resurgence of the podcasts. We're going to start having more tech writers on, and so we can keep giving folks skills to break that stereotype that tech writing is a boring career. And the skill we're talking today is surviving in the dev world. And I know as I say that phrase, there's probably a lot of listeners nodding their heads or feeling a sense of familiarity, because this is a concept that is, I'll use the word, infected our discipline lately. Tech writers feeling like they have to battle and grind in the dev industry just to add a little bit of value or to feel valued by their employer. So, Michal and Pawel, I'd like to start off for maybe the new tech writers or the tech writers who aren't working with main developers. Let's talk about, what are tech writers doing in software companies? What skills do tech writers have for which they were hired by their employer in the first place?
Maybe I'll go first. It's always a hard question to define what tech writers really do. It's like, for me, on a very high level, your job is to deliver docs. Mm-hmm. But this is on a very high level because docs may mean many different things, and you may deliver them in many different ways. So it's not like it's one definition for each tech writer, and it's really hard to define it this way. What skills? I think that our main skill is the ability to combine different technical skills and different soft skills and language skills. So like hybrid. And I think this is the most important thing when you are a tech writer, that you are able to combine skills from different areas. This is in my opinion.
Michal, you put it very well. I think the only thing I could add is, and at the same time, I think it's the skill that helps us survive, is the being able to understand the broader context in two ways, right? So at software companies, we often work on huge software, a huge system which has a lot of components, and nobody who works on those components really knows all of them, right? So somebody's working on the back end, somebody's working on the database, someone's working on the front end, right? And nobody has the full picture in terms of technology, and then the full picture in terms of understanding both the customer and the support team, and all of those different things. So the product owner or the product manager would be one person who needs to understand a lot of those business aspects and customer aspects, but the technical writer, I guess, has to understand those customer aspects as well as the technological aspects. So to put it more simply, a developer from any of the teams that are working on the huge software project can come to the technical writer and ask them a question which is outside of their immediate environment, right? So the tech writer would know, like, why did we choose this database? Would know, how is the customer going to use this functionality? Would know, how does the customer install it? Do they use, so I guess having very broad knowledge of what's happening is one of the one of the most highly valued things that a tech writer can bring.
Absolutely, acting as knowledge managers. So for the topic of the podcast, what changed, Michal and Pawel? When did the tech writers start to feel like they weren't valued? When did they start to feel like, I have to battle to be able to survive in this industry? What changed?
To be honest, I'm not sure when it happened. I've been working as a tech writer for the last 6+ years, and I don't know how it was before, because since I started, it's been always like that to some extent. It also depends on a company that you're working for, but basically, I think it may have been the same way for all this time. So maybe it's a thing for the last 50 years, 60 years. I don't know. It's hard to say, but one thing is sure that I've heard many times my fellow tech writers complaining about being at the end of the food chain and not being able to get the information that they need. Many different things that they were complaining about working with developers, that nobody understands what they do, etc. So to many different problems. But as I said, it's hard for me to say when it changed. Maybe it's been like this whole time.
I am a newcomer to the profession as well. I've only been working here 10 years, and I think I've also always heard people complain about the same things, SMEs not giving them information, etc. I think what has changed over the long term is probably how fast software is developed and how fast it changes. And another thing that has changed is the customers have feedback now. So, software developers as well find themselves in a different world than they did 30 years ago. When those huge IBM mainframes were the most popular form of software. All of those big systems that somebody wrote for years and then handed over, and people used them for a couple dozen years, right? So this no longer happens. Everybody's more pressed for time to develop the code and to hand it over. And I guess the tech writer who used to type away on their typewriter, now they have to integrate with agile builds every couple of weeks. They have to be quicker, and nobody has the time to explain everything to them.
And Pawel, I appreciate you commenting on how quickly software is coming out and how fast companies are putting out new releases. Because I think that definitely plays a role to the tech writer feeling like he or she has to battle to survive in this industry, because oftentimes perhaps the writer is the last group to get access to the information. Usually the developer gets it first as they start to work on this new project. And the result is, I feel like the tech writer is feeling insulted and discouraged. So we say things like coders code and writers write. And I think about Neil Kaplan. He likes to talk about this topic a lot. He's a technical writer over at Splunk, and that is pervasive to the work that we're doing, and is creating a bridge between the tech writer and the developer. We feel like we have to say, we're here because developers don't know how to write documentation. That's why the tech writer's here. And I would love to hear both Pawel's and Michal's thoughts on how do we change this conversation? We need to be able to bridge this gap between the developer and the writer for us to all meet the mutual goal of creating a better product. How do we start to change this conversation? And from our conversation before, I understand y'all have a controversial take.
Well, for me, because we already mentioned that we like to complain about different things, like working with developers is one of them. But we need to look at many different things here. It's not like they're bad people and they don't like us and they don't really care what we do. I think it's also our responsibility to change the how it works for us, because we should ask ourselves a question, in my opinion at least, that have we really taken time to understand what other people do? Because we are expecting others like developers, product managers, business analysts, different people to understand what we do. But have we really taken time to explore what other people really do? Not like superficially. So, for example, I know that product manager manages a product, right? Or developers, they code. But do we really talk to our developers with whom we work on a daily basis? What tools they use, how they work, what frameworks they use, what problems they have, anything like that. So I think we should start here to understand the environment we're working in, to be able to expect people to understand what we do. And I think this is the first step we can take to change the conversation around, relationship between devs and tech writers.
And I imagine it's not a heavy lift, Michal. Is that correct? Could it be as simple as just going over to the developer and saying, hey, let's sit down for lunch together today. Let's step out for a cup of coffee real quick. Is it that simple to start bridging that gap and having that empathy for the developer and what he or she does in the organization?
I think it really depends on people, because some people may be comfortable with having a chat with someone they don't know, or, they know, only because they work together. Some people may not like it. But what I meant mostly was, for example, I joined a project some time ago. It was like a few months ago. So I started with looking into tools that developers used, their coding environment, and thinking how I can plug in my workflow into this, into their workflow. So to be, to understand their perspective and make their lives easier. So I started there, and after a few months, it's working pretty well, and they understand what I do because I'm present in their environment. Like, I plugged into it. I also change things in their repo. I do stuff that sometimes wouldn't be really expected from a tech writer in a traditional, perspective. So I think I would start here, having a coffee, of course. But I don't know if it's ever at the very beginning it would work. So, you need to gain their trust first, I guess, and then you can just, start with other stuff.
I couldn't agree more. I think we need to do more than gain their trust. I think we need to earn their respect. And let me explain real quick what I mean, because I feel that a lot of developer groups operate kind of like I imagine Vikings used to operate. Someone is one of them is the greatest warrior who can boast the most, and they respect him, and then he becomes the technical lead or the guru, and everybody has to prove their prowess in battle. And the battle is just in the computer, right? They're coding lines of database access queries, etc. But I guess, like if somebody is very non-technical, as they would put it, or doesn't understand code, doesn't understand technology, they will not respect that person as much. Because I've seen this in a large number of teams, and I'm sure Jacob, Michal, you've come across this as well. For example, if the PM or the Scrum Master doesn't understand what the developers are talking about, doesn't know when to keep quiet because this is a vital moment in the conversation. If you show that you don't understand, developers will ignore you. I guess it's not just software developers. It would be the same with any professional group. But I guess software developers are often under so much stress they don't spend much time working on their social cues on the social side of the conversation. So they'll just bluntly ignore you or just bluntly tell you to shut up, right? Gaining their respect is one thing, but proving valuable to them is another. And I guess if you prove valuable, you can gain their respect, right? But if you prove valuable, I guess this is where the controversial aspect of what Michal and I believe comes in, because I think as a technical writer, you can no longer just write. You have to code a little bit. You have to at least read the code, right? Because Michal was saying some time ago, why do we ask people for information? Why do we why not look it up in the code, right? And that's it's reasonable, right? If we ask people, and Michal was saying again, Michal, I'm stealing your best quote, but if we
damn,
because you said if we ask somebody to look it up in the documentation, they will tell us look it up in the code, right? So I've been working with a team recently where they asked me to set up a site for their documentation because the internal documentation follows a different setup than the customer documentation. We have processes for the customer documentation, but internal docs are more kind of, everybody does their own thing. And I was able to pick up the standard front end that the DevOps team uses. And I was able to set up a website using that front end, set up a server and everything. And I could see that this really helped, because it kind of removed one task that my team would have to do if I weren't there. So as a technical writer, I added some benefit to the internal workings of the team, not just the customer, but also the team on site.
And I appreciate y'all starting this conversation off with trust, gaining the trust of the developer. And as you guys mentioned, a huge part of that is shared language. I mean, understanding the types of problems that they're facing, and then simply approaching he or she and saying, hey, how can I help make your job easier? So if their response is, it would be helpful if you could just go straight to the code to find the answer to a problem. For the tech writer who that's a new concept to them, they haven't really dove into code before and looked at it as a developer does. How do you get started? How do you make that shift from changing, always going to the SME, to going to the code first and seeing if you can find an answer for yourself?
First of all, it won't be easy for sure. If you haven't touched programming languages before, it's not going to be like you're going to pick it up in 2 days. But you can build, I think, basic understanding pretty well. You've got so many educational resources available now on the web that you can use, like even I don't know. I don't want to mention any names, but I think I shouldn't do it, right? But I'm looking at what I did some time ago. I wanted to, because I had some understanding of programming languages, but it was a bit superficial. Like I knew how it worked more or less, but I wanted to start creating even simple scripts myself to make my life easier. For example, when I need to do something as a tech writer, I don't need to ask anybody to do it for me. I can just, create a simple script that's going to automate stuff. And I'm good because I don't have to rely on developers helping me with this thing. So I decided to start learning Python. I chose Python because it's quite popular and people claimed that it was pretty easy to pick up, at least the basics. And it turned out that after a few months, I was I was able to create some scripts, some of them less complicated, some of them more complicated. But at this stage, I'm able to solve my own problems without asking people for help, like developers taking their time and waiting for them to do stuff for me. Like, for example, I had an idea, let's generate some descriptions from the code that you create instead of copying and pasting into the docs. And they told me straight away, can you do it yourself? Because otherwise you're going to wait. It was like, we can help you, but you can count that we're going to do it for you, because we simply don't have time to do it. It's not like we don't want to, because we can see value in it, but it's not a high priority, So I created a simple generator myself, and it kind of worked. So, it met my requirements, and they didn't have to invest their time. So it's not easy, but if you want to do it, I think you can quickly change things around. And also, what I want to mention as well is I saw that if you show them that you're at least trying, it's not like you have to be an expert, because it happens to me that sometimes I change small things in their code. Like, for example, I created some simple feature in their repo. It wasn't anything complicated, and it was, let's say, merged into the master branch, and it was accepted by them. It wasn't flawless, but they saw that I wanted to do it, and I was trying, and this way they know that I'm willing to learn, and that I have some skills that they wouldn't even expect from a tech writer. So this is, first of all, to answer shortly, don't be afraid to try, because this is the first step for me.
Yeah, but I would say stay humble. Like you said, Michal. Your code is not going to be perfect, and you're not going to catch up with those guys because they've been doing this for years. So just straight away, your position is, I'm a tech writer who tries to code. So you guys go easy on me. If you do it that way, you'll get a lot of help from them. And yeah, it's very hard to start, but I guess like Michal said, Python is very, very easy to learn, very intuitive. So once you start reading the code, you will see that it's kind of like human language. And then you can, as you get deeper into it, but I guess you have to stay interested in it. Like, keep reading up, keep trying to develop your own little scripts or whatever, and find an area in your life. If it's not at work, maybe something in your private life, find an area where you can code. Because I guess, or where you have motivation to code something. I don't know, write yourself a plugin to your digital video recorder so that it catches your favorite shows or something. Try doing that, because I think these days everybody should code a little bit, at least a little bit.
I think that also you're gonna gain one more thing apart from understanding the code and making your life easier as a tech writer. You also will gain this perspective that developers have. So, for example, if you try to solve programming problems, you will end up, using the same resources, the same forums. You will get into this environment, and you then will understand what problems they have and how you can help them and be more valuable for them. So this is also, switching the perspective is also very valuable here. And also, about what Pawel said, that guys, don't be too harsh on me. You can always put it this way. If you won't be too hard on me when I try to code, I won't be too hard on you when you try to write docs. Because it works both ways, right? So, because we can always criticize them for using bad grammar, for example, or using bad English, or not being too consistent. They've got many things that we can, point out. So we can do it this way. Of course, it's a joke to some extent, but it may work.
Yeah, we're all working towards the same goal, just to create a better product. And I appreciate y'all talking about, hey, we can start small, start with something that you're passionate about to start with code. I think about Write the Docs and how their founder, Eric Holscher, is always encouraging what he calls the documentarian to get involved in open source GitHub projects. So Michal and Pawel, if someone's passionate about an open source project, is this an opportunity for them to contribute for that in GitHub as well?
Hey, most definitely. I think something that's close to home for tech writers could be data, because there's a lot of open source stuff around data. You could participate in they're always looking for people to participate in creating the standard, but also there's plugins online which you can help, you can, maybe improve the PDF plugin that everyone's using and just share your updates. And that would be very useful to you later on as a technical writer, wherever you go. If there's data involved, you can automate a lot of tasks and really, reduce the number of times you have to copy paste from wherever, because you're just going to be figuring out these new generators that'll help you do it. So that's one big project in my mind that is worth looking at. Michal, I know that you're more interested in those static site generators. Have you seen any projects worthwhile in that space?
There are thousands of static site generators, so you can basically, I guess you can find something for yourself. Literally there are thousands of, maybe not thousands, but hundreds of those, out there. So you can easily find the one that you like that supports your needs, and you can contribute to it. But one thing that comes to my mind referring to data is you can also try to create some integrations with other systems, because Pawel and I, we've seen so many times that data will not integrate, let's say, with some dev environments, and you would like to transfer, let's say, content from their code into data, and it's not that easy. Like, there are missing, plugins. There are no straight integrations. So if you create a script that's going to make it easier for people to, let's say, transfer a content from restructured text, or I don't know, markdown even, to data, like seamlessly, people is going to appreciate it for sure, because this is going to build a bridge between the dev environment and the tech writer environment. So there are many
Confluence
options.
to data. There used to be a plugin.
Oh yeah, that's the one.
That's a huge pain because it's very comfortable for people across the company to use Confluence or something like that to contribute to docs. But then if you have a pipeline which involves data or some other generator, it would be great if you could grab that Confluence content and plug it in there. So there's this all disused Confluence to data plugin that nobody's supporting anymore. If you feel you have you have use for it, why not try contributing to that?
And it's a low lift to empower the tech writer as they're taking on code, perhaps for the first time. And if they're not ready to approach the developer and start that conversation, I can't think of a better way just to mess with a project that you're interested in or that fills a void in your personal, professional life. And once you get comfortable contributing to the code, have some great confidence as you approach the developer and being able to translate that skill into the workplace.
Sure, it's always an option. As we said, there are many solutions that you can use to start coding and to start contributing real value to other people.
Awesome. Well, Michal and Pawel, I appreciate y'all so much joining me on the podcast. And I think the listener should feel that, hey, I can survive in the dev world. It's not too challenging. Let's start off with building a relationship with the developers, thinking about that shared language to bridge the gap. And then from there, if I'm understanding correctly, it's simple as just asking the question of, what can I do to make your job easier? And that sounds like it's diving into the code. And it might be overwhelming at first, especially if you're new to programming languages. But as you guys mentioned, start with a small pet project. Start with something in your personal life or an open source project that you enjoy. And then work your way up from there. Understand that's going to be an incremental progress.
Yeah. Maybe I can add one more thing, because when it comes to coding, maybe we scared people a little bit, because we started talking about all this serious, stuff that you want to create, like integrations, plugins, scripts for automation, and etc. So it doesn't have to be like that. So I think that even small changes that you can contribute to the code within your company. Okay, let's forget about all those GitHub projects and things like that. Let's go back to your work as a tech writer in a company. When you're working with developers and they have a repo with their code, you can start contributing let's say, by changing labels, by changing command line help, by changing things that are actually in the code, but they are also to some extent documentation. And we very often forget about those elements, and they're really, really helpful for the users. Like things that you get in your log messages, for example, things that you get in your log files, they're many times they're badly written and they're not very helpful, and you can change those things by changing the code, because those changes are pretty simple, and devs, believe me, they don't have time to deal with this stuff. So if you can take care of those elements, they will appreciate it for sure, because they will have to think about those things. And also coding is one thing, but you can also make their life easier by let's say creating some templates. You can, let's say, you ask them for information. So to make their life easier, you can just create a simple template showing them what you expect to get back from them, instead of saying, hey, create a markdown file in the repo. That's it. And basically you're going to get one sentence or nothing, or like 2 sentences that don't tell you anything. Just create a simple structure, tell them what you need them to, to provide you with, and, simple things like that. So I think there are many areas where you can make yourself useful, to put it maybe in a bad way, but when you can prove your value to the team, but not only typing those docs as people imagine. You can be something else as well.
Yeah, and stay or become useful as a source of information to your team. Like I mentioned before, you should be the person who they can ask if they don't know. Just stay interested in what your company is doing, what other teams are developing. Talk to your salespeople and find out what they're selling currently, like what angles they are pursuing with the customers. Talk to your tech support, what kind of problems they're solving. Just stay friends with them, and they'll complain about what customers have trouble with. Though this is going to be valuable information that you can use in meetings with software developers. And stay interested in your company strategy, because that can also contribute to the conversation. Talking about, for example, switching to cloud technology, which is something a lot of companies are going through still. For example, if you take the AWS course, just ask your boss for some money for an educational budget. Go through this AWS certification course and just be somebody who knows all the terms and terminology connected to the cloud and knows how it works. That'll be a huge help to your developers, and it'll make writing documentation easier, and it'll make your developers work easier when you can, just feed them little pieces of information, little tips, and then get yourself to a point where if you ask developers for help, you just come to them with 1 or 2 simple yes or no questions, because you can figure out the rest on your own.
Beautiful. Well, Michal and Pawel, I appreciate y'all so much sharing your skill with us. If anyone wants to holler at you, learn more about what y'all are doing in life, wants to follow up and learn more about how they continue to survive in the dev world, where can people find you online?
I think that the best way for people to find me would be on LinkedIn. So you can just look me up by Michal Skowron, and I should pop up in the search results.
Yeah, I'm pretty easy to find on LinkedIn and on Twitter as well, so should be fine. And we can probably add some contact links to the description.
Yeah.
Perfect.
And if they want to hear more about y'all's perspective on tech writing, you guys are working on a blog as well, correct?
Actually, I'm contributing to a blog. It's techwriter.pl, but it's in Polish, so it might be hard for people from the States. But if you know Polish, that's fine. But if you don't Polish, that may be a problem. Yeah, but. Well,
I don't have a blog or anything, but I sometimes speak at conferences. So if you ever see my name at a conference where you're at, just say hi and we can chat. Check out SOAP conference in Krakow yearly, because we're always there. And SOAP publishes a lot of videos from the talks, so you can also watch those for free.
Awesome. Well, I'll make sure to include in the show notes the personal profiles for each of you and the conferences that you mentioned, Pawel. And gentlemen, I appreciate you so much for sharing your skills, and we will talk soon.
Thank you, Jacob. Let me just add one more thing at the end. I'm really happy that the podcast is back, because I listened to it some time ago and I was really disappointed that you discontinue it. So, and I'm very excited to be your first guest along with Pawel after the break. So
it's awesome. I'm honored. And as the two of you continue to go about your professional lives and correspond with someone and think, hey, he or she would be a great guest for the Not Boring Tech Writer, or for anyone listening to this podcast as well. I mean, we're in the early stages of really aggregating more guests. And no matter who you are, first-time tech writer or someone who's in the business for a bit, you have value to add to this conversation. That's the beauty of this podcast. It's focused on skills that you can gain to improve your skill set, and just beautiful, accessible content. So no matter who you are, holler at me and we'll keep this podcast going.
Yeah, this guy doesn't bite, so go ahead and contact Jacob.
Well, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending your Saturday with me, and we will talk soon. Thanks so much for listening, everyone, and thank you to Knowledge Owl, knowledge-based software, for powering the podcast. We had a great chat, and we'll talk soon. See ya.